Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal educational commentary, and today's the day I earned that subscription. For today's story, we are talking about a Florida man who is a little bit upset at his ex-girlfriend because she won't answer his phone calls and texts. Now, I have to admit that I understand this frustration, as I'm sure so many of you do, right? You give a phone call, you send a text, and you don't get a response in a timely way. Or you're engaging in a text with someone and they just stop texting you suddenly, or they just get off the phone with you suddenly, or they don't answer in the first place. And you feel like they're not really engaged, right? You send messages and phone calls out into the world, you don't get them back in a timely way. When you do, you can't maintain a dialogue with them because there's too many gaps. They won't answer things promptly. It's very, very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating, and I totally 100% understand that frustration. There are many valid ways to express that frustration. One of the valid ways to express that frustration does not include shooting your ex-girlfriend 15 times in the back for the refusal to answer the texts and phone calls. Many reasons to be frustrated. Shooting 15 times in the back, not necessarily a valid method of expressing the displeasure. Let's get started with this. A man has reportedly confessed to the police that he shot his ex-girlfriend 15 times in the back because she refused to answer his phone calls and texts since ending their relationship. Carlos Jones, 23, allegedly told the police that if he had to do it again, he would have not only killed his former girlfriend, Shadalia Johnson, 23, but her father as well. So he has regrets it wasn't a double murder. Cops in Melbourne, Florida say they were dispatched Tuesday to Colbert Circle and found Johnson injured in a carport. Shadalia appeared to have multiple gunshot wounds concentrated in the backside of her body, suggested that she was shot as she was walking or running away from the perpetrator. Paramedics took her to the hospital, but she died along the way. Apparently, she was still living at the time police found her, despite the 15 shots in the back, but that's a lot of damage. Witnesses say that a black Nissan sedan with black wheels, similar to Jones's car, was seen fleeing the scene after the shooting, according to the affidavit. Surveillance cameras also recorded the vehicle, so that helps a lot. Johnson's father said he lived with his daughter at their home in Colbert Circle. He was resting in their living room on his recliner on Tuesday while she was getting ready for work. She exited out of the front door to make it to work by 8 a.m., so this was a daytime shooting. The father heard gunshots as he checked out the living room window. He saw Jones, who had been dating Johnson for the past 5 months, from the chest up, standing behind Johnson's vehicle and staring in the directions of her house. Jones's car had been blocking Johnson's in the driveway. The father stepped out of the home to check, noticed Jones and his vehicle were gone, and found his daughter lying face down by her vehicle in a pool of her own blood. Johnson's and Jones broke up 2 weeks prior to the shooting after they got into a bad argument, the father said. Jones allegedly did not let things go. He kept calling and harassing her to get back with her, but Johnson refused to engage, instead ignoring the text, the father said. So apparently they were already broken up at the time, which is even worse. Right? I understand. I've had people I'm dating who are not good with the returning phone calls, not good with the returning text messages, who leave you hanging, who, when you text them and they respond and you're texting for a while, they'll just stop responding, even though you're like still in the middle of the conversation and just like, what happened in this conversation? Like, I thought we were conversing. What happened? And it just, and like you get 2 or 3 text messages and then it just stops. And that's very, very frustrating. Or you call, or they don't return, and it's very short, and they just hang up on you, or they, don't respond in a timely way to your phone calls. I understand these frustrations. I think we've all been there, possibly with multiple people we've been dating, being ghosted. I get it. I totally understand the frustration, but maybe less with the shooting 15 times in the back. Jones last tried to contact Johnson on the afternoon of the 19th. The day of the shooting, or the day that this happened, the defendant turned himself in to Palm Bay Police Department. Palm Beach police say when Carlos entered the lobby, he spontaneously stated that he was looking at facing 35 years in prison, but would not elaborate why. I think you're looking at more than that. Melbourne detectives say that Jones made a full confession to them during a post-Miranda interview made on video. He allegedly said that he shot Johnson on purpose. It was premeditated, and he used a semi-automatic pistol he owned. It's not going well for his trial. According to the cops, Jones say he woke up angry that morning, you don't say, because Johnson was not answering the calls and texts. This is not the best anger response. Carlos said it was at that very moment when he decided he was going to shoot and kill Delalia, the officers wrote. Knowing she had to work at 8:30, Jones drove to her home just after 7:30 to kill her. He blocked her parked vehicle in the driveway by using his car, and he found her as she was exiting her front door for work. The two apparently exchanged words. As she walked back towards her home, he pointed the gun at her and shot her 15 times in the back. His estimation of the number of rounds fired was based on the fact that he only had 3 rounds in his magazine following the shooting. Carlos said he arrived at a fully loaded magazine, and his pistol, including the magazine, had 18 rounds. So a Glock 17, presumably, 17 plus one in the chamber. Carlos estimated that Delalia was around 8 feet away from him when he shot her, and she collapsed on the carport floor in front of her vehicle after being shot. Jones allegedly said he bought the gun and ammunition approximately a week before, though he initially claimed he got it for self-defense. According to the cops, he said he changed his clothes at his apartment after the shooting and tossed them in a dumpster along with a box of 9mm ammo. Then he allegedly drove off, going westbound going towards I-95. When he entered I-95 northbound, he discarded his pistol magazine with 3 rounds of ammo out the passenger side window. Carlos then traveled to an area of Nagel Drive in Rockledge and discharged his semi-automatic pistol in a storm drain. He allegedly marked the dump locations on a map, putting an X on the spot and writing the gun was there as part of his confession. Officers say they were able to find Jones's clothes in the apartment dumpster and his discarded gun in a storm drain. Jones reportedly said he turned himself into the police after his mother called him and pleaded with him to surrender. It's not going well. Jones is currently locked up in Brevard County for first-degree murder, held without bond, his initial court report appointment on January the 19th. So not going great. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story of Carlos Jones, who was mad at his girlfriend for breaking up with him and then not returning his phone calls and text messages. Again, we've been there. We've all been there. We feel like we don't have closure. And the person we love, we feel like is scorning us or disrespecting us, possibly while we're dating, not responding to things in a timely or thorough way and making us feel abandoned and unloved. Or even after we break up and we feel like we haven't gotten closure or we want to get back together. I think we've all been there one way or another in different times. And it can be very hard. It can be very heartbreaking. It can be very disappointing, and it can be troubling. I think we all understand this pain. But again, maybe less with the shooting 15 times in the back. So he's going to jail for the rest of his life for the murder with a firearm, premeditated. So, not going great. So, yeah. And that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.